Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Digital Workflow Cafe presented by SymphonyAI Summit, one of our webinar series. My name is Tim Laws. I'm the Senior Director of our Sales Engineering team here at SymphonyAI Summit, and I am joined today by Roy Atkinson. Roy is the CEO of Clifton Butterfield, a well-known presence in the ITSM industry, and what I've recently learned, a British car enthusiast. Welcome, Roy. And today we're going to be talking about Gen AI and Copilots, which is a very hot topic right now. Gen AI and Copilots are revolutionizing the technology landscape, offering unprecedented gains in productivity, quality improvement, cost reduction, and a wealth of new opportunities for innovation. McKinsey predicts that Gen AI alone will contribute to a staggering $13 trillion to the global economy by 2030. A recent GitHub study highlights a 56% increase in task completion for speed of software developers utilizing a Copilot. And Microsoft estimates that a Copilot could lead up to an annual savings of $100 billion in the software industry. These transformative tools are reshaping the technology landscape and unlocking new realms of innovation. So Roy, we're going to jump right in. I got a couple of questions for you. I'm eager to dive into how you think Gen AI and Copilots will streamline automation, specifically in ITSM tasks. Do you mind sharing some of your insights and potential areas of impact there?
Sure. Let's start with something really common. When we think of ITSM, we think of service desk. That's the view that most people in an enterprise have of ITSM. So let's talk about handling service desk tickets, or if you prefer, call them cases. They can arrive through multiple channels in most organizations. They can be created by end users in a portal, or they come in via email or via Microsoft Teams. And in HDI's report, The State of Technical Support in 2023, says that 76% of organizations in the survey are using email as a channel for support. 66% are using voice telephone, old school, and others like web portals, chat, mobile apps, WhatsApp, Facebook messages, all these different channels that cases are coming in. In each case, regardless of channel, needs to be logged with a short description, it needs to be prioritized, it needs to be categorized and assigned to the proper group to take action, to respond, repair, restore, whatever it happens to be, or provision new equipment. And while there have been some strides in streamlining these procedures, this work is still frightfully manual in a lot of organizations. Yeah. And the more manual process you put in, the higher the chances for errors or omissions. People forget to do stuff, they don't want to do stuff, or they make mistakes when they do it. And so what happens is that you get things like errors in categorization or miscategorization of these cases, these tickets. What happens then is that puts a dent in your ability to monitor and measure and report on what's actually going on. That's a problem. Prioritization, of course, is really important, and in some cases it gets very granular. It's hard for people to learn this stuff. It's hard for them to remember it, which we'll come back to, I think, if we have time. And then along the way to resolution, notes and comments get added to a case, and then once the case reaches a resolution point, if there's some final notations and comments added, and the case is marked resolved. So imagine the ability of an AI Copilot to assist during all of this, to work on all the elements, and I'll go through them if we have time.
Yeah.
But first, let me tell you a little story about one support team I managed. One of the team members would write something like, made some changes in the resolution notes. Totally unhelpful. Another would write hundreds of words describing every single step that they took. Still another had the extremely unhelpful habit of just putting a period in, because they had to put something or they couldn't push the button that said resolved. So they put a period in. So things like that make it extremely difficult for us to really get a read on what's going on.
Yeah.
And so the ability of Gen AI and Copilot to summarize interactions can make a huge difference. Make sure that the relevant information gets into the system. That accelerates the work. It also increases the accuracy of the work and of the reporting, because the information isn't missing or attenuated or ignored. So you kind of have a much better handle on what's going on. And that's just one aspect of one thing, and there can be huge gains here. AI is very good at categorization. Better than humans, who tend to operate by opinion. No, well, so I think it's a software problem. No, I think it's a printer problem. No, I think it's a, right? I mean, that goes on all the time. And if you give the proper data, labeled data and so forth to AI, you can get very good at prioritization too. Gen AI is extremely good and fast at summarizing. That is where a lot of meat happens on the service desk. They can summarize all the actions and interactions that have taken place, all the notes, all the conversations from various channels, and can condense them into a summary in a matter of seconds. It used to take a lot of time. After call work, it's called most of the time, or after conversation, or however you call it in your organization. The summaries can be automatically checked for quality assurance. And quality assurance used to be done on a very small sample of tickets or conversations, or however you wanted to measure it. Now you can do it every time. Service desk analysts can give it a final check to make sure that it says what it's intended to say. And then having all those documentation ducks in a row lays the foundation for better metrics, better reporting, better plans for improvement, because you can really see what's going on out there in the organization. And I think that makes a huge difference. And for cases that require human attention, analysts, and that means the ones that didn't come in through a portal, or ones that weren't auto-generated by some device on a network, generally a service desk analyst will handle about 18 tickets a day. If Gen AI and Copilot can take 3 minutes off each one, and that would just be, let's say, in the summarization phase, there's your 3 minutes right there. That's 54 minutes a day. That's just a little short of an hour. Then an analyst now has an hour that they didn't have last week. And that's just one part of one process. These time savings can be huge. And that's all great. But what's even better is that the assistance Gen AI and Copilot can give us by delivering answers and solutions to end users, so they don't have to open a case in the first place. And we should probably talk about knowledge a little bit. We'll get there, I think. So, and then there's AI's ability to spot anomalies, which can help predict potential incidents and predict them so there's no business impact. So there's a lot of different ways just in that aspect of service management that this can have a tremendous impact on the work that we do, the way that we do it, and how we provide assistance and support to it, the systems that help our end users get their work done.
I agree 100% there. I think what you mentioned, or at least where I'm personally seeing the biggest impact, is the summarization. And I've turned on. I'm officially addicted to ChatGPT at this point. I've turned on the AI search results for Google, and I think I've had that on for maybe 2 or 3 weeks now. And that's all that I look at. I was thinking about this preparing for the webinar. I don't even look at the first or second link anymore. Google gives me the summary of what the search results are, and I get the answer that I need right there. So it's making that even easier. And like you said, if you know a Copilot can save an analyst or a technician a couple of minutes per ticket, you times that by, you said, the 18 tickets per day on average, times that by the size of the team. I mean, eventually you're getting 20 plus, almost 40 hours back over a week, depending on the size of your team. So that's definitely going to have a huge impact there. Roy, one aspect that's particularly intriguing to me is how Gen AI and copilots can enhance decision-making within ITSM processes. You kind of spoke about that a little bit in the last question with categorization and things like that as well, but could you shed some light on their role in facilitating smarter and more informed choices?
Sure, and I'm using no, just kidding.
Yeah, let me summarize my answer for you, Tim.
You summarize that answer. Well, Gen AI and Copilot can respond to plain language queries, right? We're at that point now where you don't have to feed things in a special way into a Copilot and present data in a very digestible form so that both business and ITSM leaders can make data-driven decisions better than before. That's key to building better relationships across the enterprise, right? If we're actually using data and close to real time, if not real time, business leaders can see what's going on. They can better understand what the next steps should be. And that's always a sticking point, is what do I do next? Given this information, what step do I take? And that's where a tremendous amount of progress can be made, because we're going to have accurate information summarized in a way that people can understand, whether they're in IT and doing IT speak, as it's called, or financial speak, or HR speak, or whatever it happens to be. You've got common plain language that will be returned to you with simple plain language queries. I want to know how many people do I need to get this done, and you can actually, based on the data in your organization, get the answers very quickly and in a way that you can understand. And I've seen a lot of times where people have well-connected Copilot tools. You can produce charts and graphs and get, summarized in a couple of paragraphs. It's awesome. The crystal clear data and information. So collaborative decisions can be much more easily made. So now you're really making progress in terms of being the leadership, being data driven, and being able to make decisions based on information that you trust. So rapidly digesting and presenting information is a huge point.
Yep, that makes total sense. Roy, it's evident that Gen AI and copilots will have a potential to empower ITSM end users, or the consumers of the product, the vast majority of the folks that are actually using it and being impacted by it. But can you elaborate how those tools are empowering the service desk professionals or the analysts?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, ticket or case handling takes up a great deal of service desk time. So making that handling easier, faster, more accurate, that's going to give the analysts more time, as we've discussed. But here's where it's helpful not only to the service desk analysts, but to the end users as well. Gen AI and a Copilot can extract information from multiple sources, including the CMDB, monitoring tools, corporate policies, user manuals, the history of that particular end user, which can be extremely useful. And I'll just stop there and mention that you have not experienced sitting at a service desk until you've been yelled at for 10 minutes by somebody who was nominated for a Nobel Prize. Been there, done that.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Having the phone about this far away from my ear at the time because they were not happy. And they weren't happy because there was something in their history that should have been clearly annotated that wasn't. It was that don't ever remote into this person's machine. Don't ever. And somebody on my team did it, and I suffered the consequences. So little bits of information like that being presented to people at the service desk or in the ITSM operation, problem management, whatever it happens to be, makes a huge difference. So you have all this information coming in. You can have it from the ticket histories, all of that, all the different channels that you're collecting, phone and WhatsApp, and as we mentioned before, a lot of these channels. HDI monitors about a dozen channels. They asked their respondents to talk about a dozen channels, and so it's amazing information streaming in, and it's very hard to digest. Now you've got some technological assistance. So we can improve the analyst experience, but at the same time, we have the ability now to extract from that information that's streaming in and the information that an analyst is adding to it in terms of working toward a resolution that can then be extracted by Gen AI and a Copilot can say, okay, here, this is new. This is new information that is not over here in our knowledge base. We need to add this information so that everybody knows about it, extract it, and put it where it needs to go for review or however it's going to work in the organization. And that saves a tremendous amount of time, effort, keeps things up to date better, which is always difficult in terms of knowledge management. It really speeds the workflow up. And then you've got things like the ability to do workload management, the ability to make sure that staffing is correct, and keep the service desk and the other ITSM operations working at optimum levels. So all of this goes to improve, and that's really where we want to get. We want to make sure that we're being responsive. And one of the big priorities for CIOs and other executives in organizations in 2023 is improving the employee experience. So if we start to think about the ways in which all of this contributes to improving the employee experience, it can be a very big impact in terms of speed, in terms of accuracy, in terms of paying attention to those little things like don't remote into my machine. That would be brought to the attention of the analyst before they start working. So you can have that, that assistance that's available to them in real time to kind of coach them through what to do, what not to do. And then you've got the whole predictive part of it too. I mean, it's just so much to talk about. How much time have we got? There's an awful lot to talk about.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, if you had Gen I back in the day, then you would not have that cool story of getting yelled at by a Nobel Peace Prize winner, right? So there's pros and cons, I guess. I think it's interesting, you mentioned with the ability, I think it's going to be very, very important to keep knowledge records up to base and keep the information as pertinent and up to date as possible. I'm wondering, the event that I was at earlier this week, right now, I kind of feel like it's the Wild West of what, LLM backend they're using and what Copilot are you going to be using, things like that as well. It'll be interesting to see how all that shakes out, in 12 months from now or 18 months from now, when you've got vendors out there like Microsoft and Google that obviously offer their own product suites, but are more third-party vendors going to adopt those due to integrations and the cohesivity of those copilots as well. So we'll wait to see and find out. Looking ahead, Roy, what are your thoughts on the future of ITSM with integrations of Gen AI and Copilot? Do you envision these tools reshaping the landscape there?
I think that they will reshape the landscape, at least to a degree, and I think that. If we just look at some of the major areas of IT service management, we talked a lot about service desk, and that's an important aspect. But think about problem management. Think about the ability to digest information and, again, categorize it, label it, all of the things that need to go into problem management, analysis of predicting what's going to happen on a network on a given day, or what applications are more prone to go down because there's a pattern of them going down every 32 and a half days. Stuff that we may know that as humans, but we don't have the time to focus on that and try to suss out when it's going to happen or what's going to happen next. If we have a way to help us digest that information, because the landscape is so incredibly complex. Now we've got cloud environments, we've got on-premises environments, we've got SaaS environments, we've got all this stuff going on, very difficult to monitor, and then figure out what might happen or what has happened in terms of trying to find a cause, or causes very seldom. Is there one root cause? There's usually multiple.
Right.
So that's problem management can be assisted. Availability management can predict where the pull is going to be, where the demand is going to happen. So that plays into capacity and performance management. Service continuity management. When is there likely to be, something that's going to happen How likely is it that this storm is going to hit? I mean, there's so many
Totally.
different
Yeah.
ways. Configuration management, what's working, what's not working
Yep.
in terms of configuration items out on the network. How do you make purchasing decisions based on the items that are out there and issues you might be having with an individual model or an individual brand of hardware that's out on your network? Change enablement, making sure that things are released after a change has been reviewed, not in terms of it's not a change approval board, it's a change advisory board, but having that last look for business impact sometimes is extremely important. And again, extracting information and presenting in a way that's digestible is so valuable. And incident management we've already talked about. Think about monitoring and event management. Again, the bandwidth of a person and the time available to them to watch over things and make sure that the monitoring tools are paid attention to. There's something that's called alarm fatigue, right? This surfaced in hospitals where people were turning off the alarms. This happens in IT all the time too. There's just so many red lights blinking that you lose focus. But if you have a way to augment your attention span and your ability to pay attention to multiple things and have the important stuff in front of you, it's going to make a world of difference as we go forward.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. I mean, this goes a little bit outside of ITSM, but with the holiday season coming up and you said capacity management, you see articles of Amazon hiring 40,000 temporary workers and UPS and all that stuff. And, the same when you come back to the people that have to then support those organizations, right? They're hiring people to physically bring these packages to our doorsteps, but then I assume they're hiring on the back end as well from a support capacity. And it'll be cool to see in the future how Gen AI and a Copilot will help them predict, the optimal number of folks to hire and things like that. So, well, awesome.
And something I didn't mention earlier, if I have a minute, is just the staff augmentation, right? Think about the fact if you have a virtual agent running in the background 24/7, that when the service desk is home sleeping, if you don't have a 24/7 service desk, and a lot of organizations don't, there at least is the ability for somebody to go in, ask a question, get an answer, and very likely get some assistance even when somebody is not there.
100%. So. Yeah, and most organizations now are working globally, right? So it's 24/7, 365. Holidays don't matter. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. You're absolutely right. Someone or something needs to be there to support those end users.
So now I have a question for you. And that comes specifically, this is after all the SymphonyAI Workflow Cafe. So what are the plans that SymphonyAI Summit has in building out its Copilot capabilities, and what initiatives and approaches are being planned in this area? If you can talk about that a little bit.
Sure. I happen to have a slide deck ready, Roy. It's what a coincidence. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. It's just, so I'll start out just with a brief introduction of who SymphonyAI is. Quick screen check. You guys can see this?
Yes.
Okay. So SymphonyAI is actually a much larger company than Symphony Summit. Summit is a division of SymphonyAI. As you can see here on the screen, we have multiple divisions, including retail, CPG, financial crime and prevention, and then we have our IT enterprise service management, which is where Symphony Summit comes in. Media, manufacturing as well. We are across 1,300 industries. We have over 3,000 employees, over 33 countries as well. So we're a very, very fast growing company. AI obviously being in our name, each one of our divisions kind of has its own specialty there as well. Here's a quick overview of some of the logos you guys will find that make up our customer base. Very proud of all of these. And here's some of our awards as well. We are the Gartner Peer Insight Customer Choice for 5 years in a row. We definitely like to hang our hat on that too. A couple of more quick awards here for us. We made it to the Magic Quadrant honorable mention last year. voice of the customer. We're in the top right quadrant with this one as well. And ISG, as you can see here too. So we're very proud of the work that we're done. We absolutely love our customer base. Obviously, our customers are pretty big fans as us as well. So very proud there. But from a SymphonyAI Summit standpoint, we kind of break down our capabilities into 5 different categories. We talked about IT service management. We offer a low-code, no-code platform. It's a single tenant architecture that has multi-tenancy within it. So what that means is that each customer has their own dedicated implementation on the back end, but it's incredibly scalable. So some of our customers are global enterprises that'll have a parent company and multiple subsidiaries underneath that, or MSPs as well, so we can accommodate all those. We're obviously in the enterprise service management space, so it's not just IT that we support, it's HR, facilities, finance, any division or any division or company within an organization that's going to support those end users. We offer enterprise asset management, service automation, and then obviously our generative AI Copilot as well, where we offer advanced NLU, service desk intelligence, live agent transfer if you still do need to actually contact someone physically, and then a conversational studio as well. Here's a quick platform overview. So I mentioned the functions that are across the top there. We have multiple systems of engagement as well. So kind of the old saying is you need to meet those end users or those consumers where they choose to work. So we've got integrations with Microsoft Teams, Slack, Google, WhatsApp. We obviously offer a service portal. Roy, as you mentioned, some of the organizations are still at the upper 70, 80% of emails that are coming in for tickets. So we have to offer that too. And then our systems of engagement, we have intent detection, intent classification, workload management, self-service, and automation. And then I kind of mentioned our solution stack on the previous slide there as well. So very, very robust platform, can be used with smaller organizations or those that are global in nature as well. Moving on to the Gen AI, here's some more statistics that we found as well. So a lot of big numbers on this page. I think we've seen and felt the impact of Copilots and Gen AI just in the last, I guess the last 12 months or maybe even less than that, with ChatGPT really taking off, and then all these other vendors, Microsoft, Google, these guys bringing their own flavor to the market there as well. And I don't see this going away. Like I mentioned before, I'm fully addicted to this now. I use this to do a lot of like the mundane heavy lifting day to day, like email generating, summarizing things as well. So I'm fully on board with this. But as you can see in the years to come, there's a lot of kind of lofty expectations here, and this is really going to kind of catch fire. So our thought process here is we're kind of breaking this down through a couple of different lenses. So you'll have your end user lens, your analyst lens, and then you'd have your CIO, CTO, manager lens as well, and kind of what they would be using. So CIO, some of their top priorities is obviously going to be growth, user experience, and then cost optimization, which is something that you touched on earlier, Roy. Agent priorities, they want help automating a lot of their mundane tasks. So you mentioned summarizing a knowledge-based article for an end user, or summarizing my case notes, things like that as well. That's really going to start adding a lot of valuable time back to their day-to-day schedule. And then the end user and their employee. A lot of folks we found they're not happy with their service management experience. So I think creating and driving the adoption of a tool that will actually satisfy those end users, and they'll want to use it and they'll want to interact with it. That's something that's always going to be beneficial to any organization there as well. So they're going to want to know when they can get a new laptop, or my email is not syncing, or my VPN is down, things like that as well, that keep the business moving. But that's where we think is going to have the biggest impact, obviously, because that's the most folks that are going to be consuming the Copilot there. So here's kind of a flow diagram of where we see this transforming the enterprise journey. Obviously, starting with that 24/7 virtual agent or Copilot, like you mentioned, Roy, having this available at all times, regardless of holidays, weather, whatever the case may be. We need to empower those end users as well. That I think transitions into workflows and prioritizing, right? So you mentioned routing tasks of incidents to the right folks. Anything we can do to bring down that mean time of resolution and make sure that that information is as accurate as possible as well. Optimizing knowledge base, so reducing ticket volume. If I can get that information to the end user right away, they might not even submit a ticket. And then that's going to drive the cost of everything down and make everyone more efficient as well. Proactive issue management and swift resolution. So if they do submit a ticket, let's say it is via email, they didn't want to go to a portal or use a Copilot, how can the Copilot enhance the response time for the analyst on the back end? Can I get that information up to them right away? Can I send an automated message? Things like that as well. Then driving optimization and continual improvement and overall enhancing the end user experience. I mentioned my experience the last, I guess, month or so with Google, which I use Google search all the time, and having that AI, that Copilot summarize the search results. I did not realize the impact that was going to have on me. Like I said, I don't even scroll down on my phone or my browser anymore. I just read that little paragraph and I'm typically good to go. So here are the three kind of lenses or personas that we're looking through. So I think this is going to be our main focus here is the end user is going to have the biggest impact. Leadership, you mentioned capacity management. They want to be able to run a report on the fly that's going to be consuming APIs from 3 or 4 or 5 different sources and summarizing that on their screen in real time. I think that's going to have a huge impact as well. And then, obviously the analysts, we want to make sure that we're resolving these incidents right away. We're looking for anomaly detection and problems and getting the right people involved as soon as they possibly can. So we're trying to simplify workflow, increase productivity, and deliver a delightful end user experience. Security is something that we didn't really touch on this. This is going to be huge, obviously, and it depends on who you're supporting, the data you're supporting, what you want to make available. Obviously, if you use ChatGPT, you're kind of opting into feeding their LLM and helping them out. A lot of folks are going to not want that, right? They're going to want to have their own containerized data models in the back end. So that's something that we are absolutely focused on. Making sure this is as secure as possible. Like I said, our architecture, customer data is not commingled like it's a multi-tenant, like some of our competition is. So customers will have their own data modeling, their own Copilot LLMs as well that they can train. They dictate what data it has access to as well. So security is absolutely top of mind for us. And that's it. Any questions?
All right, great, thank you. And I'm glad you did touch on the security aspect too, because that's really important with intellectual property and that has been in some cases leaking out into ChatGPT because people aren't sure how to use it and so forth. Customers will be asking questions, so it's good that you have addressed that.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, and that's something, obviously security within organizations is always something that's top priority, but I think something we kind of talked about at the event we were at earlier is if your tool is not up to speed and satisfying everything like that an analyst would need, why would they not sign into ChatGPT to go find help? So there's gonna have to be some controls there as well as far as making sure the data kind of stays in house. But awesome, Roy, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you joining us on our Workflow Cafe.
Nice to be here, and cheers.
Cheers. Happy Friday. Have a good one.